So let me summarize, 4 things you need to prepare as a woman if you are or you think you enter into a really difficult relationship.
So, on my journey, by way of background, I was born and I grew up in Singapore at a time and period where Asia was undergoing some rapid economic growth.
Has 10 years in JP Morgan, those international banks. I wanted to know, do you have any investment strategies that for rich people that in beginners investors that we can learn from? Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. If you're someone who wants to know how the rich people invest and learn practical investment strategies from a senior banker who has over 20 years of working experience, including JP Morgan, or gain actionable insights into navigating a finance or banking career, then you're in the right place. And today we have a very special guest with us, Serena Wong. She's a seasoned banker with over 20 years of experience in the private banking industry. And she's a managing director at the International Bank currently. And she's also my ex-colleague at JP Morgan. Serena spent over 10 years at JP Morgan as an MD and senior banker. And she is also the author of the Amazon bestseller, Why Women Don't Talk Money, and she's very passionate about helping individuals and families manage and plan their assets. Hello, Serena.
Hi, Charlene. Hi, listeners, viewers. My name is Serena Wong. Thanks for the introduction. It's a real privilege to be here to share my story and perspectives. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so happy to have you here. So, Serena, can you tell us a bit about your journey in the finance industry and what inspired you to write Why Women Don't Talk Money?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's how much time have we got, right, Charlene? So, Charlene, you and I actually met on LinkedIn first, and discovered that we have a number of overlaps where we live now, where we worked before, and we quickly found, the time to meet up, have Asian food, and talk about what we do now, and how we can be helpful to each other. So, I'm very grateful for the chance to speak again and really loving and celebrating what you're doing now to build financial literacy in communities. So, on my journey, by way of background, I was born and I grew up in Singapore at a time and period where Asia was undergoing some rapid economic growth and it was an industrialization boom, right? So, Singapore
Mm,
went from third world to first world in one generation. So, I grew up in a society where meritocracy was valued. It was a time of unlimited possibilities and actually really a
yeah,
time of happy naivete because if you study hard, work hard, you will get somewhere and you will leapfrog in life, and you understand this, Charlene. And we can have a better life than our parents did. I think
yeah,
importantly also I
exactly.
want to say that I went to an all girls high school and really felt comfortable and actually really strong
Okay.
around women. And I was brought up by my paternal grandmother and my mother's
Mhm.
sisters. Because when I was growing up in my earlier years, my mom had to go to work. She was a supervisor in a factory. So I stayed during the week in
Mm,
my aunt's home. And my mom would come pick me up on Friday. And I went back to my parents' homes during the weekend. So
okay.
yeah, I had really the early imprint of women caring for the extended family. And my role models then were women at home, not women at work. And it was usually the men who worked in jobs who was, the
Mm,
sort of traditional source of financial income, but really women did all the work and all the operational and emotional work of keeping a family together, but were not
mhm.
really financially rewarded or recognized. So that was the way I grew up.
Very, very true. Yeah, even in today's world, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I had no money discussions at home really. And
Mm,
ironically, I then built a career in banking and finance. I've worked in sovereign wealth fund, investment bank, private bank, family office, and wealth management over the 24 years of my career so far. So I definitely touched the topic of money, almost on a daily
mm,
basis. Been a banker, I've led teams, markets, worked in large organizations, small startups, worked also across countries, in Asia, Europe, and the US. And currently, I just moved to Zurich, Switzerland, a few months ago. And we all know how crazy expensive Zurich is. So
yeah,
my
gosh.
career really has been all about money. So
Yeah.
really a tale of, two contradictions.
Yeah.
And to your question on why I wrote the book, Why Women Don't Talk Money, it's for a very, very simple reason. I, was advising and I talked to other people about their money, but I didn't feel comfortable really talking about my money. And I realized around me that women were not comfortable discussing our money, and we don't
Mm,
talk about it with each other, how much we earn, what we need, what our career,
mm,
money aspirations and objectives. And the reason is because money complicates our relationship with everyone, with others, our parents, our spouse, partners,
yeah.
children, friends, colleagues, bosses, because we don't want to be calculated, we don't want to be transactional or controlling, and we were not brought up and
Yeah.
socialized that way. So
Yeah.
money is really a way that, one person controls the other, man controls women, parents control kids. There's financial hierarchy amongst friends, and work is a way that employers also shape our behaviors. So the book really is a way for me and others, men and women included, to untangle and find our money clarity. I think,
Yeah.
we
And
were, yeah,
yeah, one thing that I found quite interesting, you mentioned is that, like we talk about other things, right? But we don't talk about money when we gather together.
yeah,
Can you imagine like during, for example, New Year or Chinese New Year holidays, we gather together. Of course, we talk, oh, how's your holiday? Do you have any planned holiday? But if you said, oh, Serena, how much money you make last year?
yeah.
Okay, how can I, as a banker, I can understand we talk about money every single day. Serena, we were also ex-colleague. We talk about, this kind of thing with our clients. But, with family and friends, people don't talk about, people feel weird, right? But why you think talking money is important, even with your friends and families?
Yeah, I mean, so we've ascertained why why the reasons we don't, because it makes us
Yeah,
uncomfortable. It makes us, especially as women, come across as transactional. We're
yeah.
not reciprocating. We're not being good and nice. And honestly, we don't talk about money because we don't have enough role models. And you and I talked
Mm,
about this before. We can't be who we can't see, right? And especially for Asian women, we don't have too many of
yeah.
these strong role models who are comfortable, confident with this money conversation. And you're trying to change that, and I'm also trying to change that. So it's important, and it's so critical and so important to talk about money, because really it touches our everyday lives. We cannot run away from it even if we wanted to. I mean, imagine, would society let us drive a car if we didn't have a driver's license? So
Mm,
it's
mm,
quite baffling, really, that we get to grow up, come out into the world, be working adults and all of that, when we haven't really, been given any information or taught about financial literacy earlier in life. Because actually,
mm.
financial literacy it's like physical health, it's like mental health. I mean, it is our financial health. But society, or we let we flounder, we get into credit card debt, we meander through
Mm,
life
mm.
without really these core some money management skills. And I'll use a story from the book for one of the ladies who sort of really very kindly gave her story to me in the book. Is that, and she graduated from a really good university in the
Mm.
US, someone fresh out from university, living the life in New York City. And she had a credit card, and she
Yeah.
said that she paid the minimum on her credit card every month, because that's what it said minimum payment. And she genuinely thought that that was what you needed to pay. So without a
Yeah.
concept of what is the APR, or the annual
Mm.
percentage rate, that's which is the cost of using the credit card, or
Yeah.
using the money ahead, right? It really is a form of loan. So these are really important skills that we need to have. So what I want to do with the book, and again, what you are doing, Charlene, in your work, is that I want to break this taboo by bringing the topic
Very, very
open
true. Yeah.
and shining a light on it, and acknowledging that there is no one universal truth, because money management, like like life, it's equally an art and a science. In fact,
Yeah.
maybe over time it's more art than science.
Yeah, I would say as important as your health, as important as your, mental health, physical health, all those topics that you discuss with your family and friends, we just need to make it more and more common. And Serena, I'm quite interested in knowing your perspective on one area is like currently probably I say 0 to 10, right? Like we are finance people, we like to quantify things. Currently, we don't talk about money, for example, and then we want to reach the point that everyone or a lot of people, a lot of us, we like to talk about it, we normalize it, right? And then from 0 to 10, there are a lot of barriers out there, right? Need us or need us to handhold each other, need a financial advisor or financial experts like you to to help clear the barrier. So what are the key or common barriers that you've seen along the way from 0 to 10?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if we were to put things on a scale of 0 to 10, I think, we're probably in maybe 2, 3 in my mind about the openness, and the frequency of it being the topic being out in the open. But I think we absolutely are in the right direction. So, in terms of barriers and why we have to smash these barriers is that we know that when women take charge of finances
Mm,
in their homes, for others, everyone benefits. And women in general have a long-term perspective, and also money to us is a purposeful tool, so we use it with purpose. And that's exactly kind of what our world needs right now, because we live in a messy world. So
mm,
the book and the topic of why we want to bring up this topic around money and women is that it's here to remind us that it's okay to talk about our financial goals. It's okay and absolutely actually necessary to ask for what we're worth, to dream even bigger about creating wealth and making it happen all along the way. So, don't let I mean, I think the barriers really has been how we are brought up and how we
mm.
normalize, what you said, normalized.
Yeah.
What are the money narratives that we've been told, all along the way, especially when we're young. Girls have, to be obedient, not question. Is the man in the family who is the, financial breadwinner. These are really barriers that's social and also what's in our
Yes, like systematic, right? From a systems
head.
perspective, from a top down, I
Totally.
would
So we
say.
want
Yeah.
women to take charge, to embrace this power, take it back, really. Don't give it
Mm.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really inspiring. And I believe there are also some common myths about women and money, like in terms of this topic. A lot of people, like, for example, including me, when I talk about finance or investments with my girlfriends, with my, female friends, and people say, oh, it's so complicated, it's finance, it's a lot of mathematics, it's a complicated thing, it's not easy. I'm not as smart, like people have this kind of thing. And then I would say, no, like you don't need it's not rocket science, right? It's really, it can be really, really simple. I think those Wall Street people, they overcomplicate things and they want to exclude a certain type of people so they can have their job safe,
Totally. Yeah.
secure. So that's my view. So what do you think, what are the common myths, about this topic about women and money that you've encountered in your life?
Yeah, so I think they're the common, obviously the big elephant in the room, or the myth, is that women is not as good with money, and given that there's only men, and I mean generally it's men and women, like the women are less good with money than men. So
Mm,
that really, let's just call it out for what it is, because like
mm,
you alluded to, the finance industry historically, without putting a value judgment on it, really has been created by men for men.
mhm,
So, but now we actually have more data. We have studies that's been done to show that there are myths, and it has been debunked, right? So, to this point about women not being as good with money, actually, women have an investing edge. We have
mhm.
to embrace it and accept it. And I'll talk about the study that was done by Fidelity, and it was a
Okay.
longitudinal study. So over a period of 10 years, 2010 to 2020, and this study was published in 21, was an analysis by Fidelity of over 5 million customer accounts, and actually showed that women outperform men by 40 basis points in that period. So yes,
40 basis points
yes, 40
per
basis points,
year,
so 0.4%
basically.
over, and we're talking about 0.4% annually compounding. Yeah,
Annually. Oh,
yeah.
wow. That
So
means like
women have been investing edge.
0.4% every year women
Yes,
outperform men. Okay.
yes,
5 million customer.
yes,
Like it's the survey covers 5 million. Wow,
yes.
that's
That's
impressive.
amazing, right? Yeah. And women invest with purpose, right? And I
Yeah.
think this is another study that was done. I mean, I saw this online. Money Crashers found that almost half of women rated a company's mission or social mission. It's extremely important or very important to them compared to just about 30% of men. So we really put our money where our values and beliefs are, and it's how we shop. You know, it's how we invest. And that kind of, for us, our head and heart needs to align when we put our money to work. So I think that's really important. Studies, and this is another study by Wells Fargo, that showed that women actually show more discipline in their investing. So in a 2021 survey, Wells Fargo found that women tended to be more disciplined or have a more disciplined approach to investing. And this actually helped us to achieve better risk-adjusted returns. And a big myth here also is that women are, we take less risk or more risk averse. But what the study showed was that actually we are more aware, or we acknowledge the risk more. So we take the right kind of risk,
We
right?
take
So,
calculated
and what
risk,
that,
measured risk.
yes, and taking and acknowledging that risk actually didn't translate to lower returns. It was actually better returns. And the study found that women achieve returns that were very similar to men while taking significantly less risk. So what all of this means to me is that yes, the financial sector was not created for women, at least not up to now. And the reality is also that women have had less money to put to work compared to men, so less of the extra. And our society conditions us to believe that women are not as good with money. So we said, girls are brought up to be obedient, not questioning. So how are we supposed to be good at investing if we don't ask questions, if we don't have opinions about it?
Yeah. That's so good. It's actually so powerful when you share with me, the data that Fidelity consolidated. They surveyed 5 million women and men, and then in the end, it proved that 0.4% outperformance that women has against men. That I think, that's really, really powerful. And from a macro, I would say, perspective, to explain why we should, be more confident, since the data already show that we are better, I would say.
Exactly.
And how about you yourself, like Serena, for example, like in my family, for example, when I was younger, my dad is a chartered public accountant, CPA in China. So he was so proud. When I was younger, he said, "Oh, I'm a money expert. I'm an accountant. I'm a chartered public accountant." And my mom, I would say, she worked in a lab. So like totally different field. But in my family, because I live in a really traditional Chinese, I grew up in a traditional Chinese family, but my mom is still the CFO in the family. I don't know if like in China, it's more or less, especially from the northeast part of China where I grew up, I think women in general are the CFO of the family. So my dad trusts her. Like every month he gives almost 100%, probably left a few hundred, as to spend, and then the rest of it he give to my mom, and then my mom managed the family money. So I was wondering, is it something like isn't common in Singapore, right, or in the rest of the other family that you see? But I would say in my family, or where I grew up, is kind of like common thing that currently I found, oh, it's quite cute.
It is super cute. I think, coming back to data, the data that I shared with you earlier really has been big studies that's been done in the US. I don't have, and I haven't been able to find,
Mm,
much ready data for Asian markets. So if you come across it, please let me know. I think
mm,
there will be nuances, but I honestly also think that, the big direction conclusions are similar. So,
mm, mm.
I would put it out there that I think a lot of what I shared in terms of data actually also works, whether we're talking about European families, European women, European origin, or Asian women by origin. I do think the directions and the conclusions are very similar. To your
Mm.
point, Charlene, about Asian women being the CFO at home, I think it is more common than we think, or more common than discussed. But I
Yeah,
think what I want to share is that I think women has been so very much involved. You said the home CFO, but
yeah,
we want to see more of that, externally, being CFO of, outside of the home, right?
yeah. In
But
the
a lot
company,
of
for
the
example.
stories that I've heard in interviewing women for the book, in talking to other women in the course of my work, is that women are very good at squirreling money away. So and there's a lot of talk about this. Not secret, but this extra account that put aside for the rainy day, and also many
Mm, mm.
stories in the book that said that it's this rainy day pocket, this rainy day account that saved the family when there's some kind of crisis that comes through. So I think
Yeah, for
women are
sure.
very, very good at that. But actually, research has also shown that in terms of retirement or retirement needs, what are people's money objectives in general? Um, Men's objectives are retirement, so whatever that
Okay.
means, right? To me, that probably means having a good life after you stop work, and being financially sufficient after that. But women, when the study asked women, what are your financial objectives, it's
Mm,
always to take care of others, is to take care of children, is to take care of the family, of parents, to be able to provide the best education, the best health care, which also means that in what that means in concrete action is that women actually take all resources and redeploy it back to the family or to what's important
mm,
for us, so that in the end there's very little or much less that's left for ourselves, in our own name, that we can A, save, and B, invest to grow the
mm.
pot. So I think that's one point that
Yeah,
I
I
want
would say I don't know how much, women in general know how to invest, but in terms of savings, at least, in my family or, the friends and family that I know, I think women are just like so good at it, how to budget, how to save, in terms of being frugal, for example, especially for some Asian
it's a
families.
virtue, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Serena, one thing I want to ask you is that, it's a little bit sensitive, definitely more sensitive than money itself. And I believe you also, mentioned that in your book, Why Women Don't Talk Money as well. It's some sensitive topics like divorce, right? For example, you even mentioned, last time we were talking about this, is that, a lot of people, female like women, they didn't realize how important money is until they come to a point that okay, they face potential divorce. So divorce, for example, is very, very sensitive, I know, but again, we wanted to bring it up to stage. We want to openly talk about it. So divorce can be financially devastating for women in general, like everyone
Mhm.
knows. And how can they, for example, how can they protect them and manage their finances during and after a divorce? I think you are really an expert in this, since you have a lot of clients, rich families, dealing with this kind of issues as well. So what do you think about it?
Well, I think first of all, yeah, I think yes, is sensitive, but I think if we can, it's an important topic that needs to be discussed. So I'm so happy that you brought this up, but
Mm,
I will begin by framing, I think, our discussion here without value judgment on divorces, because there is never truly a black and white situation.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I
Yeah.
have been through a divorce myself, so I would add that ultimately, it's how
Mm,
we make the other party or each other feel that's critical, less so what we do in the process. I think that
Yeah.
people always remember how we make them feel, right? So I think that's one point I want to make. A few generalizations though, is that yes, you mentioned that a divorce can have devastating or more stinging impact on the party who is more financially vulnerable, men or women. Maybe at
I
this
mean,
point tends
both. Yeah,
more
for
to be
sure.
women, especially if it means that the other party did not have a working career or gave up a paying career, therefore have less savings, and also over time compounding, have become less financially knowledgeable. So I think how we can think about it is that if you are, or if I'm the party who's more financially vulnerable and need to get up to speed on managing our finances, I mean, let's just take a humanistic
Mm-mm.
approach, person to person approach. Is hopefully you have a group of friends or somebody you can trust to talk to about this, because
Yeah.
it's a very sobering moment. And from my own experience, also, it's such a confusing time, and your brain and your mind, is in a fog. So
Yeah.
I think, first and foremost, if anyone listening, out there is going through a difficult situation like a divorce, just give yourself some slack. Cry, throw yourself into something, and whether it's
To
work and
really
yoga,
release the
something,
emotions.
yeah,
Yeah.
and heal. I mean, grief and heal. And then, I think we can be in a better frame of mind or mindset to tackle the issue of money. But if we were to be very practical about this, what are some of the practical steps that we can think through about a financial health check at this point? Whether you're
Mm.
in the process of a divorce, or have thinking about one, or have come out of it, doesn't matter. I think here are some sort of key thoughts that I would like to share with everyone.
Yep.
One is, especially if you're a woman, do you have your own bank account? Do you have your own credit
Yeah.
card? Because the world out there is such that you kind of you need a credit card to get around, to travel, to pay for things. So make sure that you have a bank account that's in your own name. Make sure that while you set up a credit card that's also in your own name. That's one.
Why it is so important? You mean I don't know. I just guess if you don't have your own bank account or a credit card, probably if it's really a messy divorce, your
You
partner.
become beholden to the other party. You don't
So
have access
so
to
the other
your
party can
funds.
probably withdraw all the money from the joint account and away.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
That's really, really, yeah,
Yeah,
important. Yeah,
absolutely.
have your own one. Have your
Have
own
your own
credit
bank
card.
account. Good days, bad days, have your own bank account. Have your own credit
Mm.
card. I think that's a very basic starting point for financial health.
Okay,
Um,
number one,
Number
your
one,
own
and I
bank
think
account.
number two,
Number two.
if there are joint accounts, if there are investment accounts, do you know the passwords to these accounts? Have you ever even logged into these
Oh,
before?
Serena, sorry to interrupt you. I really want you to share, not yeah, it's a personal story that, I do have a friends, very, very close friends, very smart, a couple friends, like, both of them are, have a PhD degree, but not in finance, but, in engineer or some related field. And I was talking to my girlfriend. I know both of them. And then every time we wanted to like, for example, I buy something for her online, and then she said, oh, I will transfer the money back to you, by Twint. In Switzerland we use Twint, where it's quite like Alibaba in, or
Yeah,
Alipay in
yeah.
China,
Alipay,
or
Payla, Pay Now,
yeah,
Singapore.
like in Singapore. And then one time I bought her something online. I forgot what it is. And then in the end, she said, oh, I don't know the password. Okay, I'll transfer the money back to you after home, because, like, yeah, I don't know. I forgot. I can only, if within $5 or 100, I can transfer you directly without entering a password. But now I need to ask my husband. And then I said, what the hell? You don't know your joint account password? I mean, they are a cute couple. We're still friends. I mean, they are still very in love, I believe,
Mhm.
also. But, this kind of thing is really kind of like a red flag. It shocked me. Oh, you don't have your own bank account. And secondly, yes, you do have a joint account. You don't even know your password.
And here
You know,
we're
this
talking about
is,
educated,
yeah, they are PhD
hardworking
and
female.
exactly. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, Serena. I
No,
just
it's
wanted to
it's so
share that.
important. It's so important. Yeah. So important. So the point we're on is that for joint accounts, investment accounts especially, like, do you have the
Mm,
passwords? And if and you can have the password, but please log in, to take a look at it. And also, what is the agreement? When there's a joint account or when there's a joint investment account. That you pull
mm,
resources together. Maybe it's in one person's name, maybe it's in joint name. These are all things you need
mm,
to know. What is the process like when you make a decision, when someone decides to buy or sell? Does the other person need to be consulted about it? And if there's a
yeah,
withdrawal,
the
does the
joint
other person
agreement.
know?
Yeah,
It's so
very
important,
true. Yeah.
right? Because you think that is there, it may be there, it may have grown and become multiple folds, or it may not be there. So
Mm,
let's not be foolish, about this. Be practical about it. That's what I'm saying.
yeah, that's very,
Yeah.
very true.
And I think, one more thing, especially in a difficult relationship situation, is, take as much as we spend times of taking care of family, everyone else, take time, and also take time also to take care of your own finances. So understand, for example, what are the assets and liabilities in your name, because yeah,
Mm,
it could, just for example, just for instance, maybe there was an asset that was bought in your name. You think, oh wow, that's a good thing. But it could also
mm,
have been that there's a certain liability or loan on it, right? Whether it's a mortgage or a car loan,
yeah,
or
yeah.
these are financial instruments whereby the recourse is to the person who's put the name to it, right? So if you're no longer in a relationship, but you have the mortgage or you have the loan, you become fully responsible for it. So
Yeah.
again, take responsibility up for ourselves. The power is with us, and we absolutely have to know it. And the other thing I want to just highlight and have encourage the conversation on, for example, is on insurance policies, because very often
Mm,
that's used as a tool, as a contingency planning tool. If something happens to the other person, if something happens to one person, in a household, the insurance policy is meant to be a way to ensure that the other person, can have, well, first of all, that short-term assets to manage the day-to-day, but then two, also have to have the longer-term resources in order to maintain or have a certain quality of life that's hopefully not too different, from before. So
so the
again,
insurance currently you're talking about is more on the life insurance
life
side of thing,
insurance.
or so
It
who
could be
are
life
the
insurance. It could be, for example, annuities, whereby it's, you kind of force save for, 10, 15, 20 years, and then you get a pool of money at the end of it. Or universal life insurance, which is, an instrument that's a mix of savings and investing tool pulled together.
mm, mm, mm.
So there are many types of insurance policies. Again, it's our responsibility to understand, well, to have it, and then to understand what are,
The
the
policy
responsibilities.
owner, who are the beneficiaries, right? And
Exactly.
how those people benefit from this. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's super
And also,
important.
insurance policies can be bought on loans, right? So you think you have one, if it's sort of put in place via a
Ah,
loan, you actually don't have it.
yeah, yeah, that's really something that I didn't think about before as well, especially for those, I would say some rich family, right? They buy it on, they
The
have a
large, yeah,
collateral.
the
Yeah,
larger
yeah,
insurance.
yeah. That's okay. If okay, I took note. So let me summarize, four things you need to prepare as a woman if or you think you enter into a really difficult relationship. First of all, you really need to have your own account, your own bank account. You have your own money. Secondly, if you have a joint account, know the password and know the log, and please log in, right? Make sure you can really get full access to it. The third thing is know your liabilities as well. For example, if you have a 3 million house or 1 or 300K, whatever, It's not, yes, it's owned by you together and your husband potentially, yes, but you also own, have that liability together. It's also part of your, your thing. Fourthly, insurance. And you need to know who's the policy owner and how does it work, how does, the people, the beneficiary benefit from the policy. Yeah, super. Hello, everyone. This is not the end of the podcast. More episodes are coming. Serena will talk about how rich people invest and share secrets and how she grew her career from associate to managing director. Don't forget to check our Millionaire Tips playlist. I will see you in the next video.